Hey everyone, thank you for joining me for another YouTube video discussion. It's hot today, but I decided that rather than hang out in my storage room, I'd hang out here in the van where I can at least get some fresh air. So I do apologize for any noise in the background. I did want to go ahead and talk about the rumors that are going around about Nintendo Switch 2. Supposedly manufacturers have gotten their hands on it and they have created different, not necessarily accessories, but like they've gotten a chance to look at it and they've released information on it, and it's since been removed, and you probably have seen 100 YouTube videos about it already. So if you don't want to watch it, that's fine, but if not, I'm going to go through what I have here. I took a screenshot of the information and then we're going to talk about it. So yeah, the first thing of note is that the Bluetooth chip of the Switch 2 is going to enable all the current Joy-Cons and Pro controllers to still work. And it's going to still feature HD Rumble and the access for moving and aiming and all that stuff. Which is fine, because again, with it being backwards compatible, you gotta have games, you gotta have that functionality in there for Splatoon and for the games that use it, like the Zeldas and stuff like that for the aiming. You gotta have it in there. Now personally, I like the idea just because of the fact is when you're holding the controller like this, it's different when you got it like this and you can directly feel the rumble right here. But when you're holding it like this, you don't necessarily feel the rumble nearly as much, the HD rumble at the bottom. So if it was me, I would want to have the HD rumble for the Switch 2 Joy-Cons moved to the triggers. And almost give it like a GameCube-esque, maybe even like a PS5 like haptic. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying that it has to directly take the haptics away, but the idea that I liked about the GameCube was that, you know, with certain GameCube games, you'd press halfway down on it and you'd get a different response out of it than if you press down all the way. I like that. I personally thought that was kind of cool with the GameCube. And I kind of get that sense a little bit also with the PlayStation, because when you sort of are doing something, I forgot what game it was. Dang it. Maybe it was Ghost of Tsushima. I don't remember what it was. There was some game I was playing where you would it was Baldur's Gate. You would hold down halfway on the, I think it was R2. I think it was one of them. You'd get a different menu than if you held down. I think I recall something like that happening. So just something like that would be cool, I think, to have. But that's just me. What do you guys think about that? Like I just talked about, and like I pretty much expected, and I pretty much think we all expected, this says that Switch 2 has backwards compatibility with Switch 1 cartridges, but Switch 2 cartridges will be different and do not fit Switch 1. Duh. This is basically a DS to a 3DS thing. If you seem to recall back in the days, if you were around back then, the 3DS had the same size, basically. It had a little jut on the side so it wouldn't fit into DS games, but also if you did cut off that side and you managed to get it to fit into a DS, it wouldn't read anyway. I'm imagining that these are going to be bigger cartridges that hold a heck of a lot more data. So they're not going to be compatible with Switch 1, obviously, but you can obviously put Switch 1 games in there, and it should upscale it. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. But again, only time will tell whether or not they're going to stay the exact same resolution-wise, or they're going to do something with it. But I mean, it makes total sense. It's basically a DS to a 3DS jump. We still had DS games that worked on the 3DS. They just made the screen smaller instead of bigger like this, and made it this size to where it lined up with the screen. But then the 3DS did more because, of course, you could do 3D, it had the wider screen and all that stuff like that, and looked better. So that's a no-win. That's a no-duh situation, I should say. But it also says that it's going to work with the backwards compatibility for digital games, which of course also makes sense, because if you're going to use the same eShop, of course you're going to use the exact same games digitally. So even if they didn't do physical, at least the digital's there. But it's nice to hear, and again, until it officially comes out and we know for sure, it's nice to hear that there's at least backwards compatibility right now. The next point says that the new Joy-Cons are larger and they magnetically attach to the system, which is nice because not particularly these models, but I have had some third-party models ones that I've shown in other videos that have LED lights on them, their railing broke and they would not attach to the side of the switch anymore. They wouldn't register anymore as docking. And if you get a system, and I have known of some systems that, you know, either the railing on this stops working, it gets slightly altered for whatever reason, it gets slightly warped or bent, doesn't fit on there anymore, it doesn't work, it doesn't read it. And then for some consoles, if they get warped or bent, they don't exactly hold Joy-Cons anymore, and you have to hold it perfectly straight, and you can't do any sort of twisting or anything, or else the system no longer reads the Joy-Cons, and you have to pick them up and slam them many times to get it to finally register again. This railing system was cool as a great way to, but I think they need to improve upon it. And I think the magnetics are going to be that. And this also says that the SL and the SR buttons are in the same spot, but now they're metallic, which I guess is going to help with that magnetic attachment. Makes a ton of sense. You know, you get some magnets here, you get some magnets here, you make these magnetic, and on the switch 2 side, that just draws them in, and then there you go. Makes a ton of sense. This is also saying that there's going to be a button, an additional button on the back of each Joy-Con. Now, what that's going to be, who knows? I imagine if they're going to be the exact same, that we're going to get LNR, ZL, and ZR. So I don't think this is going to be an L3, R3 thing, because we already have that. These can click in. But what's that going to be for? Maybe they'll move the buttons down here, because when you're holding it like this, especially if they do bend forward, this is great for VR, to have buttons right here for grabbing. And so you just do that, and you just grab them. Almost like what I talked about when I did my discussion about how Nintendo could do VR on the Switch. And basically how I forget what they call them now, but basically the PSVR 2's controllers have the L2 and the R2 on the side for grabbing. This would be kind of a similar situation. I don't think it's going to be this, because if they're going to be able to attach magnetically, then I don't know how they're going to turn it off, so maybe that's what those buttons are. But assuming that these are still going to be present, and they're talking about a different button, who knows what that button's going to be. If I had to take a guess, those buttons are going to be to release the magnets on the side, and that's what makes them come off. That's what I imagine they're going to be for, especially if you're going to continue to have something like this, right, where it covers that up. You know, just have like a small little button right here that you press and they come out. But again, just keep this. But if this is gone and you just have this little piece right here, and it slides in, and there's no longer a back right here, then yeah, just having a little button to press to pull them out, that makes sense. But what do you think that button could possibly be outside of maybe those possibilities? And my bad. There's one more thing that this also says, is that the home button is going to have one more button underneath it. I don't know what that's going to be for. Maybe turbo. Maybe the back button is turbo. I don't know. It seems kind of weird to throw an additional button, because unless you're going to have it to where you move the button over here, that seems odd, because then it takes away from the whole symmetricalness of the system and having everything kind of equal. If you're going to add a button here, I would say add a button here that's for share, and you just hold that down and you can share stuff. I don't really know. Something that I do want them to do, I mentioned the triggers earlier and how I want the haptics to be there and respond and all that. We talked about that earlier in the video. I would love to see them use the home button more for notifications. I mean, let's face it, the last few consoles that we've had, the Wii had an LED around the disc slot. That came up for notifications. If you got a message directly from Nintendo, if you knew how to send emails to your friends and text messages to your friend every time you got a new text message or an email or just anything from your friends, that light lit up so you knew you got something. The Wii U even had it to where if you got like a new notification, that light would come on. Even the 3DS, when it had Spot Pass, had some kind of functionality in there. I don't really know. So why the Switch didn't have it, especially when this has an LED around it and can be used, and they didn't use it to like, hey, you got a new message, hey, you got a new notification. That seems like something that the Switch 2 does need to have, is to allow, even if it's through the app, and you just read it, this can at least go off and tell you got a new message from somebody. You got something on sale in the eShop. You got something, a new notification in the news channel from Nintendo. Something. Use it for more than just Ring Fit, because Ring Fit's the only game that I know of that allows this to light up because of alerts to let you know it's time to play. That's the only game that I know of. There might be others. Feel free to put it down in the comments below, because maybe I'm wrong. But that's the only one that I know of. So whatever that other button is going to be that's going to be beneath here is going to be very interesting to see. What do I want it to be? Well, because it's already going to be where the home button is, and you happen to have an IR sensor here, maybe you turn that on and off. Maybe it's a button to turn on the IR sensor. Or maybe because these might have little chips inside of them, hopefully they have chips inside of them, if you're carrying one of these around with you, it's a way to share stuff. Almost kind of like the Tamagotchis, or even the VMUs, if you remember what the Dreamcast did of VMUs and how you could send data back and forth by connecting them. This can just send data over. It almost becomes like Street Pass in that regard. And it'd be cool to be able to carry one of these around and maybe have some kind of protection for it. And I just turn that on, and the IR sensor is constantly just sending signals around like a radar to anybody that's carrying one around with me. And again, this just lights up to when I go home, I charge it to my console, I turn this on, it sends the data over, and I see you've encountered these people. Almost like the Nier system on PS Vita, if you remember that. The Nier system, where you could see people and what they're playing around you and stuff like that. That would be kind of cool if it did that kind of data. That's probably a little bit too complex for Nintendo, because even Sony gave up on the Nier thing and it wasn't perfect. And even the Spot Pass, Street Pass thing wasn't 100% perfect and accurate, because I knew for a fact I was in the same room with people that had the 3DS and it still wouldn't register. But it's still kind of a cool idea to think about. I'm just trying to think about what they would possibly put here underneath the home button. But of course, what do you guys think is going to go there? And then in the last little bit of what the post said is everything that we kind of already figured out with the Switch, right? The Switch 2 and everything that we want. If it's still going to use USB, of course, because being able to dock it and, of course, charge it through USB-C is just going to be the best way to go about it. No proprietary charging, just Type-C. And again, you could probably still use the same charging cord that you had. And who knows, maybe in the same dock. Although it probably would have to be the Switch OLED dock, because if they improve the dock to where it does 4K like this is saying it's going to do, you probably would need to have the OLED dock that's capable to be updated to update to that. Who knows? And of course it says it's got a better bezel on the back for improved angles and stuff like what the Switch OLED did. And that's going to be an 8-inch screen. And it's going to be 1080p. That's what all this is saying. Now, everything that I mentioned here directly from the screenshot that I took, take it with a grain of salt until we officially see the system. Like, that's the only thing I can say for sure. Make sure until we see the system, which supposedly we have a shareholders conference in May. Maybe they'll show it off then to give the shareholders a little bit of an idea about what's coming. And we'll see some pictures of it. We'll get some more information about it. That would be great. May is right around the corner. We're only a couple weeks away. That'd be great to see. But until we officially see it from Nintendo, just remember that we thought we were going to get a Switch Pro, and instead we got a Switch OLED. So just keep that in mind until we officially see it and know for sure. But everything they talked about here, I'm okay with. I'm okay with the magnet because, again, I talked about my issues with the railing before. I'm okay with the SL and the SR still being up here because it just makes sense to have the same compatibility, especially if holding it like this. You can use the same Joy-Cons and you're just doing it like this and you got the little grip and you just got them improved. I'm okay with that. Would I have liked them to have been down here? Yeah, that would have been cool, but then I can imagine that when you go and you put it in like this, that the back might accidentally register, hey, are you pressing, are you pressing SL right now? Are you pressing SR right now? Like, I don't know. I thought it would be also cool if I talked about this in another video, if they allow it to charge through like some kind of a Qi charger, whatever they call it. Basically, you just set it up on top of a little thing like that, and it just charges it. It doesn't have to charge on the side of the Switch anymore. It doesn't have to get some kind of special peripheral. You just get a little flat pad thing, pop it on there, and there you go. But that's just my 2 cents, guys. What do you think about everything I've talked about in this video? Do you look forward to any of this? Do you think any of this is great news, stuff that you kind of wish that, you know, maybe they did a little bit different? I don't know. I'm sharing my thoughts about what this was shared, and I know that there's been a ton of YouTube content creators and influencers out there that have talked about this already. So feel free to go check out their stuff also, because maybe they have additional thoughts or different information than what I took a screenshot of. But I appreciate you guys watching as always. Have yourself a good one, and I'll see you in the next YouTube video.